Hi, my name is Scarlett, and I'm an atheist and skeptic. And have you ever wondered, how can I become an atheist? Well, WikiHow has you covered. They have a whole post on how to become an atheist in 11 steps, and I thought we would read it today. There's our blibbity blab. Let's get going. Before we get into the WikiHow post, just a bit of channel news. First of all, I am going to be traveling for the next few weeks, so you won't see any posts from me, and sorry about that, but sometimes we got to get away. But I will be back, and I should have some good content. I've got a couple of videos on my desktop waiting for me to look at and script, just haven't gotten around to it yet. And number two, I am hoping that at least some of my audio problems are solved. I realized that my computer was kicking my microphone off just randomly, and I have to go fiddle around in preference boxes and whatnot to set it back up. Technology, can't live with it, can't throw it off a bridge. So, having said all that, let's get into the WikiHow post, How to Become an Atheist. It is co-authored by Asa Dawn Brown, PhD, a clinical psychologist with 118 co-authors, and it was updated recently on April 22nd of 2025. I usually really love the pictures on WikiHow, but the one on this page is not too interesting. They're okay, but check out this one from How to Get to Heaven. I mean, that is some grade A illustration, and that would have been cool to see, but okay, whatever. So let's see what they say. Atheism, in its broadest sense, is an absence of belief in the existence of gods. Hallelujah! I think this side is onto something. This definition includes both those who assert that there are no gods and those who make no claim about whether gods exist or not. Simply stated, anyone who does not believe in gods, by definition, is an atheist. Yes. Narrower and more common definitions, however, often only qualify those who assert there are no gods as atheists, labeling the others as agnostics or simply non-theists. Yeah, that's all true. So, I think that is something that if you're going to talk to people, you need to get off the table right away. What is your definition? What are we talking about? Where are we going off the rails if we're talking to each other? On this topic, Jordan Peterson recently went on Jubilee's show Surrounded and made this claim: atheists reject God, but they don't understand what they're rejecting. And it's not that I reject God. I simply don't believe that there is a God there that exists. I don't see any evidence for one. And every time somebody shows me something and says, this is why I believe, I don't think that that's good enough to accept the claim that a God exists. And as for understanding what I'm rejecting, I tend to try to go with whatever the person in front of me is saying. Is it an all-knowing God, an all-powerful God? Is it a physical God? Is it some kind of spaceless, timeless mind outside of everything? I don't know, whatever they come up with. And yeah, a lot of times you can't understand it, but there's no evidence for it. Frankly, I found that whole episode a little maddening, but then when you're dealing with Jordan Lobster Peterson, what you gonna do? Because the man is just unpinnable. You can't get him to accept anything. But anyway, I digress. Let's get back into the WikiHow. There is no single ideology that all atheists share. True. Nor are there any institutionalized rituals or behaviors. True. There are certain individuals whose religious or spiritual beliefs some might describe as atheistic, though those holding such beliefs do not normally describe themselves as atheists. Yeah, maybe. Due to some contrary belief, primarily in heavily religious countries, being an atheist does not imply deliberately disobeying God. Yeah, true. Atheism is not a belief, but is only the absence thereof. Yes, I agree with all of this. Atheists are also sometimes accused of hating God, which is impossible since you cannot hate something you do not believe exists. Oh, I love this WikiHow. Atheism is not directly linked to evolution or the Big Bang Theory. However, many atheists, primarily those who wish to study atheism and religion further, turn to science, hence gaining an interest in such theories. I have no complaints about this so far. Let's keep going. In countries such as the United States of America and continents such as Asia, religion is thriving. And it's different religions, and we should be clear on that. But that's true. We do have a lot of religion around in the world. Although it may seem black and white, countries with the highest poverty and murder rates, lowest education rates, and human development rates, HDI, tend to be the most religious, in contrast with the most atheistic countries such as Norway and Sweden. Oh, I could kiss this WikiHow. This can also be observed in the US by state. I love that they're pointing this out, but you know what would make it really great is if they had some kind of reference to something. I mean, I know this is true, I've seen the stats, but little number here to tell us where to go and to see this for ourselves, that would just be, a little cherry on this little WikiHow cake. Let's keep going. All right, we're getting into the how-to now. Number 1, examine your current beliefs. No matter what you previously believed, if now, deep down, you find no belief in God, your transformation is already complete. Yay! There is no process or initiation for becoming an atheist, except possibly a coming out to others. Yeah, that's true. You don't have to get baptized. You don't have to do anything. You don't even have to come out if you don't want to. If you can honestly think, I don't believe there is a God/gods, you are already an atheist, and congratulations. And by the way, that little number 1 reference goes to American atheists and some atheist resources. So good on you, WikiHow. I do like that particular reference. Like, help yourself. Welcome to atheism. Go serve yourself, whatever you want. Just a quick trigger warning for this next part. There will be talk of a hypothetical dead child in an accident, so you're warned. Number 2, understand the difference between belief and truth. I like that. I like this particular thing. Consider the following examples. And I did follow that number 2. It's not a great Psychology Today article about belief and truth, but we're not going to talk about it. Let's go to the examples. A stranger comes to your door and tells you that your child has been killed in a car accident outside their school. Oh my gosh. What an example. Bullet point. You would feel a pang of emotion, but this is a stranger. Do you believe them? Do they know who your child is? Is this some kind of cruel joke? Do you really believe that your child has been killed? You will be inclined to harbor some strong doubts. Okay, I find the setup a little bit weird, but let's go to bullet 2. 2 police officers come to your door, squad car in the driveway. They tell you your child has been killed. They need you to come with them to identify the body. Gosh, this should come with some kind of trigger warning because, why are we imagining this? Anyway, you will in all likelihood believe them. They are police officers. You will feel the emotion as though you know for a fact that your child is dead. It will be real to you. And yikes. I don't really like the example, but let's see what they do with it. You should notice that the difference between these 2 examples is the authority of the messenger, not the message itself. These examples are also chosen for their emotional content because the emotional content is a large part of what makes a situation real to us. Okay, I kind of get what they're getting at, but I still think you didn't need to do such an extreme example to get to the point that there's a difference between belief and what is true and facts and all that. All right, but let's keep going. The point is, whether we believe something based on authority or emotion or both, we cannot know it is true until we see with our own eyes. The highest authority you can imagine could tell you the simplest thing, and you may believe them, and they may believe themselves, but that does not in any way make it true. I do think it's a good point to say that just because we believe something, that doesn't make it true, and we could be wrong, so we should be careful about what we think we know, because maybe we just believe it. I would like to see a little bit of different language. It's not necessarily that we have to see it with our own eyes. I mean, that's true of events in our life, maybe, but with scientific knowledge, we can do all kinds of readings and experiments that have nothing to do with seeing. We get evidence of different kinds to come to different conclusions. And just overall, I would kind of like to see a more nuanced description of knowledge and truth and belief and all that. But, it's WikiHow and it's just for the lay person. It's not a philosophical thing here. So we're just going to leave it there. There's so much more we could say. But we're going to go on to point 3. Understand the difference between scientific belief and religious belief. The difference between belief in a scientific theory as opposed to belief in a religious dogma boils down to the difference between the institution of science and the institutions of various religions. Ooh, I kind of like that phrasing. Let's see what they have in mind. The underlying concept in religious institutions is that the nature of reality is known. The nature of reality is written in a book or scroll. The writing was originally done or dictated or inspired by a god. Religious institutions are primarily concerned with spreading information about the known nature of reality because, in their understanding of reality, that is what they are required to do. Depending on the religion, they don't all need to spread the reality. But anyway, religious facts are not subject to testing and in most cases cannot be tested. Religious facts are supported by evidence that is open to interpretation or no evidence at all. Religious facts are not reviewed by all religions to reach a consensus. And yeah, I think that's an interesting paragraph, and I don't think I'd ever quite put it together that way, but it is true that people think that they know the truth, and the truth is often, at least in Christianity, it's like God did it. It's different according to religion, and it's hard to actually talk generally about all religions at once because, they are quite different, have different implications, and so on. Let's keep going. The underlying concept in the institution of science is that the nature of reality is unknown. The institution of science is primarily concerned with discovering the nature of reality without making assumptions. Scientific theories must, by definition, be testable, falsifiable. Theories must be published for review by other scientists with the intention of reaching a consensus. Accepted theories are supported by evidence that is not open to interpretation or is consistently interpreted by qualified scientists. If evidence is found that contradicts a theory, the theory will be abandoned. And I think this hits on a lot of the important aspects of science, that we're trying to come to a conclusion without assuming we know what the actual explanation is, that we have to have evidence for them, that there has to be a peer review. And if we find contradictory evidence, we have to take a different path. So I think this hits a lot of good aspects, and I think this is a nice juxtaposition with that religious paragraph before. Let's keep going. One believes in a scientific authority because they derive their authority from the review process and because they have an interest in discovering the truth. One believes in a religious authority because they have been given authority by their superiors, who in turn get their authority from their subordinates. Religion has no interest in discovering the truth because the facts are already known. Wow, WikiHow not pulling any punches with that. Religion has no interest in discovering the truth. They think they have the truth. The only thing that I would change about this is, instead of scientific authority, I would put experts, like people who have trained and studied and are presenting their best evidence, versus a religious authority, who could be experts on their religious texts, but that does not mean that they are experts on whether or not a God exists or any of it's true. They know the text, in other words. Let's move on. Number 4, remember that you aren't the only person who has found fault with their religion. People throughout history have looked critically at their religious beliefs and found fault. If you have issues and problems, then look at them honestly with the notion that you will not be punished for trying to find out what you truly believe. Ooh, I like that, because I think a lot of people who are deconstructing, or whatever term you want to use, are afraid of hell, quite frankly, at least in the United States, where Christianity is so strong. So yeah, you're not going to be punished for just looking and seeing what's out there. Moving on. If your beliefs are valid, then they will stand up to scrutiny. Yeah, I agree with that. Most of the religions that have ever been have gone extinct. You would be hard-pressed to find people worshiping Thor or Quetzalcoatl. Take a hard look at why you don't believe in Thor or Ra or Zeus. Would you be Islamic, Christian, or Jewish if you were raised in Iran, Mississippi, or Israel? Yeah, nice questions. Number 5, consider your ethics and try to understand where they come from. I like it. It's like WikiHow is looking at questions for atheists and just answering them all. So, you don't need a gods to be moral. Atheists are not unethical. Like many theists, many atheists donate to charity and live lives that are morally similar to those of theists. I make that point all the time. Atheists just might have different motivations for doing so. Many non-believers focus their concerns on social justice. And the section finishes out with a quote from Steven Weinberg: with or without religion, people can be good or bad. And, overall, don't have anything to say about this. It just hits that. Don't think that you're going to turn into a bad person because you're an atheist. Don't believe all of those cliches, if you were in a religion. This is obviously aimed at somebody who has come from religion. It's not aimed at somebody who grew up in a secular family. Obviously, we're trying to understand what all of the cliches and prejudices are around atheists. Let's move on. Understand what atheism isn't. Many people conflate atheism with things that are either unrelated or true of most but not all atheists. Ooh, I just love this WikiHow post. I just love, love, love it. Agnosticism. An agnostic is someone who is unsure of whether or not a God exists. You can be both an atheist and agnostic. Many atheists are also agnostic, even if they only identify as agnostic. A Gnostic atheist is someone who is sure of God's non-existence. We could have used some editing in there, but okay, we get the point. Or you could call them an anti-theist. But I do love that they're putting these labels out here and just getting that question put to bed, because I hate it when the discussion devolves into this is what you call yourself or this is what you believe in. No, that's not what we're talking about. So let's get to what we're talking about. Moving on. Atheists do not hate God. Since atheists do not believe in a gods, they cannot hate something that they cannot hate it. Oh, just one person to read it. Like, I know I make a lot of typos when I type things up, but just get one person to read the thing if you want to put it out there. They can, however, hate the notion of a gods, or the idea of God's impact on society, though many atheists do not hate the notion of God. Yeah, and I think that that's a good point to differentiate, that sometimes you can see that people are doing things in the name of God that are not good things and that they shouldn't do, and you would like to see them stop doing. But you don't believe in the God. What you're observing is somebody who does believe in God and things you disagree with about their behavior. Let's see what else we have in the understand what atheism isn't category. Atheists aren't always non-religious, though most people who identify as atheists are non-religious. Some organized religions are atheistic. Yes, a lot of us make that point from time to time. It's probably a minority of people who are here on the old YouTubes talking about atheism, but they do exist. Note that being an atheist does not mean that someone doesn't believe in the afterlife. Although many atheists don't, atheism is lack of belief in God or gods, not the afterlife. Oh, good point. They're hitting all of the hits here. You do not have to be anti-religion. Some atheists, however, do disapprove of organized religion, as well as the doctrine of faith as a virtue. There are others who still attend religious services for their own reasons, such as an agreement with some of the moral tenets, membership in a community, or even just a fondness for the music. I'm sure that some religious people would be offended at that, but it's true, and people have their own reasons for doing things, and you can't do anything about that. And it's true, I actually don't think faith is a virtue. Just accepting something because you think a deity said it, yeah, it's not good. Like, go look into it, go see if you think it's true. Next bullet. You do not have to write off the possibility of unverified or unverifiable phenomena. You can acknowledge that they are possible without insisting or acting as if they are true or trying to convince others that they are true. I agree with this. You can imagine that there is a possibility of stuff and say, well, we don't have the ways of measuring that or testing that yet. They're unverified. As of right now, they are unverifiable. But I always like to think you should start with the evidence. What do we perceive? What do we see? What kinds of things are out there, and what do they lead us to think about the universe? Like, the evidence should lead the story, not the story set the evidence. Of course, we have lots of stories of gods, so to go look and see if a god is out there doesn't hurt anything. But you start really with what is known and what do we see, and then how can we explain those things? Okay, next bullet. You do not have to subscribe to any set of beliefs. Atheism is not a religion. Atheists hold a wide variety of beliefs and outlooks, the only similarity being a lack of belief in a god or gods. This is great. That's absolutely true. That's what we're always out here saying. And here it is on WikiHow. Who knew WikiHow could have this much good stuff on it? Good job, WikiHow. Let's keep going. Number 7 is understand that you do not have to give up your culture. We are not going to read this because it's kind of a long description of how you can still celebrate any of the holidays with your family, religious or not religious, or make up your own or whatever. You can be with people and do the kinds of things that people do. If you want to read it, you can stop the video and read it. It's pretty decent, but I still celebrate Christmas. I still buy Easter candy. If I remember, we kind of toast the solstice or the equinox or something like that, but that's not such a big deal. And, birthdays are still great, and get-togethers with friends and so on. So, you don't have to change anything about your life. You just don't believe in a God. Let's keep going. Number 8, learn to see and come to conclusions about the world through a logical lens rather than through faith. Yes, the scientific method is universally accepted as the best way to understand the world. that's all we're going to go on. You can follow the link to learn more about the scientific method, but I agree. Again, the scientific method is about developing a hypothesis based on the observations we make and then finding evidence and peer review and all that good stuff. Let's go on to number 9. Discuss the world in this context with other atheists and with religious people. This will help you understand why people believe what they do and help you understand your atheism in that context. And it goes on, you can look for online community if there aren't many atheists in your area. And I do think this is a great idea, is if you're leaving a religion and you have to kind of figure your own self out, like, what do I think about a whole host of things? I don't have a religious authority telling me what I'm supposed to believe. It's good to hear what people believe, why they believe it, and then filter it. You don't accept it. You kind of have to think, well, what do I think of that? And do I think their explanations are good? And anyway, it's a really great process. If you love to learn and you want to improve yourself, I think it's the best way to go. And I did go find an online community. In the old days, it was a forum. Now you can probably find Discord server and that kind of thing. So I totally agree. Talk with other people, figure out what you believe, why you believe it, what are good reasons, and never stop trying to figure that thing out. Number 10, study various forms of theism. While most atheists argue that theists are making a positive assertion and thus bear the burden of proof, it is important to thoroughly understand your former faith and its tenets as well as those of other faiths. The more versed you are in other religions and the more you understand why people believe what they do, the better basis you'll have for your worldview. Also, it will help you fend off those who will try to convert you to their religion once they learn of your atheism. And I don't know, I think this is kind of a personal thing. Are you interested in learning about religions? Then go for it. Are you interested in having these debates or discussions with people? Then go for it. Go learn about all of this stuff. And there's lots of good information out there. But you don't need to do this. To be an atheist, again, you don't have any burden of proof. You don't accept the evidence for a God. And it is the evidence that starts. You don't start with God exists and then try to prove me wrong. Why do you believe in God? But I just leave this up to the individual. Are you interested in it? Then go for it. If not, you don't need to do it. Go find what interests you and develop that. Number 11, communicate your perspective to those who are curious. Do not be shy, but don't be condescending. Try to help them understand your point of view in a non-confrontational manner. However, you may choose to hide your perspective if it is clear you are going to run into trouble. In some countries or regions, the price of atheism can be very high. And I think that this is really great advice. You don't have to have these conversations. You don't have to have a quote unquote coming out. If you don't feel it safe, don't. If you can and you want to and you're interested in it, go for it. But I think that this is a good point to make that, sometimes atheism is not all that welcome. And, you might just keep quiet about it. People don't need to know everything about you. And frankly, you don't owe explanations to everybody that you run into. So if you feel like telling people again and you feel it safe, great, good on you. Let's go for it. On the WikiHow, you can ask questions and get a community answer. And so one of the questions that caught my eye was, how can I stop feeling guilty about being an atheist? And first, I feel bad for this person. Like, why would you feel guilty about that? But I would like more context. Like, why do you feel guilty? What's going on? What religion did you come out of? But the community answer is, there's no reason to feel guilty. Atheism is not about losing faith, but evolving beyond it. Many atheists have concluded through logic and reason that a deity is unlikely to exist. Embrace atheism as an expression of your understanding of the world. And not every atheist is about evolving beyond faith. I mean, some people are raised in a secular way. But overall, I think that's a good answer. There is no reason to feel guilty. Maybe you are worried about losing family or friends. That's a different question. Speaking of questions, they also have some questions to think about. There are quite a lot, so I'm only going to cover a couple. Why do I believe in God? Oh, this is the most important question of all. Do you have any reason to believe? And if so, what is it? And number 2, how did I come to believe in a God in the first place? And I love that it goes into your cultural situation. And you probably believe in God because of your cultural situation. And on a similar topic, question 4 is, why do I believe in my specific God? And what if I'm wrong? And goes into, there have been so many gods. How are you sure that the one you believe in is the right one? Now, there are some warnings on this WikiHow, and I'm not sure I've ever seen these warnings on other WikiHows, but maybe I just haven't scrolled to the end of the page in this way. So these are some of the warnings. One is you may find that some friends will no longer want to associate with you. These were not real friends in the first place. If they were, they would still be friends with you. Yes, WikiHow preach. Number two is some parents will react harshly to you coming out as an atheist. If you are worried that coming out to your parents may be unsafe, potentially being killed, losing college fund, getting kicked out, etc., it may be best to not come out, especially if you're a minor or dependent on them. And I agree, this is that question of safety. If you do not feel like you're in a safe situation, or this is something, you're in a situation where you need these people for some reason, wait until you can tell them. Wait until you get into a situation, if it ever comes, that you can tell them. Number three is believers may try, sometimes relentlessly, to convert you. They may completely fail to understand your new position. Be understanding. And yeah, depending on your community and your friend group and your family, if there are a lot of religious people around, they might not understand why you came to the conclusion that you did, and they might put some pressure on you to bring you back into the fold. I'm really lucky in this regard because, first of all, I do have a lot of atheist friends, and, converting each other is just not a thing that happens. But even among my religious friends, we really don't talk about religion. They don't try to convert me. It might come up in that they'll say, oh, I'm praying for you, or they'll say something about a blessed day, that kind of thing. But our friendship is about other things, and we talk about other stuff. It's just not really an issue. I would say if you're not interested in having these conversations, you're not interested in being the target of some conversion attempt, then you need boundaries, and you need to tell people, we're not going to talk about that. And if you're going to talk about that, I'm not going to hang out with you, or I'm not going to be with you. I'm going to walk away. Let's use our time more productively. Let's do something we both enjoy and not talk about all this religious stuff, because it's not productive at the end of the day. I mean, if you want to have the conversations, great. But if you don't, boundaries. That's what I would say. So point 4, warning 4, be prepared to be ill-received by some religious people. Many theists find your lack of beliefs both offensive and horrifying. Ooh, not pulling any punches there either. Many atheists find themselves socially scorned or even threatened with violence. It is important to talk about your ideas, but be sure to do this in an appropriate context. And yeah, if you're afraid of violence, it's not a time. You don't need to show up and be an atheist in every context. If you feel like you're going to have something bad happen, just keep that to yourself. And it's true, some people might be shocked and horrified, but some people might be curious too. But yeah, good warning. Let's keep going. Next up, do not go public if you're in a country where atheism is illegal. As atheism means no God, there is no God that will magically protect you for being an atheist. Only come out when it's safe. Yes, definitely if you're in one of those countries, keep it to yourself. And the next one, if you get off religion in class, the other students in your class may start to hate or envy you. If you get off religion in class, maybe if you start talking about religion, I'm not sure if I've understood this correctly. I have the impression that if the other students understand your point of view because you're talking about religion, they might hate or envy you. Yeah, and yeah, that's a possibility. It's kind of the same point we just made before. And the last of the warnings, study your beliefs. Don't just become an atheist because you want to. Study and think about whether or not a God existing is really reasonable. Ultimately, you don't decide to become an atheist because you don't really choose to be unconvinced. Eventually, you just realize that you are unconvinced. I think that's a good point, and that goes back to what do you think you know, what do you think you believe, and this is something you just realize about yourself, and it's exactly my story. Nothing actually happened to me, nothing bad happened. It's the belief just kind of bled away until one day I'm like, I just don't believe anymore. I'm not convinced of a deity, and it just happened like that, and there I was, an atheist. And so there you go. There is your WikiHow to be an atheist in 11 steps, plus some warnings and some other stuff. And there's more on that page. We didn't cover it all. But what struck you? Put it in the comments below. I love to read your comments. And while you're down there, you know the drill. Do all the liking and the subscribing and the YouTube stuffing. For Algorithm and his consort, Algorithm may bless you with lots of good and mediocre and frankly shit YouTube recommendations. And also, if you like what I do, you can buy me a coffee. Here is a QR code. My kitties who think you're buying me kibble, because that's all they really understand is the state of the bowl. And thank you to everybody who has bought me a coffee. It is greatly appreciated. And like I said, I'm going to be on hiatus for a couple weeks, but I will be back. And it's going to be stupid. Bye for now.